Welcome today on Chai After Dark. We have a special episode with a special guest. He started an award-winning Sri Lankan film, TV, and theater company called Malla. He has a degree in film from Evangel University in Springfield, Missouri, or Missouri, how my old history teacher used to call it. Won some awards for short films and subsequently got his master's in film over here in the OC at Chapman University. Fast forward today with Malla and having worked on Captain America: Brave New World. Welcome, Rajeev Colton. Let's go. Oh, wearing some swag too on the call. All right.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hey,
Hello.
Rajeev.
Okay, sorry. The Wi-Fi here is really crap. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How are
It's nice to
you?
meet you, Rajeev. Yeah.
Nice to meet you as well.
Very cool.
Great.
Thank you for this.
My name is Imran.
I'm Shabnam.
Yeah, I'm Sameem, and the three of us, we've known each other I've known Shabnam for quite a while, and we've been friends, I don't even know how long, so we're pretty casual.
That's awesome.
Nice
Thank
Captain
you.
America shirt. Yeah.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
thought I'd dress for the occasion.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Now, did I get most of that right?
You
All
did.
right.
That was great. That's super awesome.
Talk about your favorite movie. Hey, take us through that.
So my favorite movie forever and always will be Jurassic Park.
Nice.
And it's because it's the first movie I watched. Yeah. And I distinctly remember I was 6 years old in Kandy, Sri Lanka. And then my dad got the white VHS tape.
Yeah.
And we were watching Jurassic Park. And I distinctly remember it not being real. I knew it was a movie and I really loved it and all the fun stuff, but I knew it was, oh, there's somebody holding a camera and there's somebody acting and there's somebody putting this all together. And that excitement that I felt, I was like, oh, I want to do that. And
Oh.
that's kind of, I think, why it became my favorite movie, was because it introduced me to the world of filmmaking.
Yeah.
And so long story short, I always want to do film. I think us all as South Asians can understand and relate to the parents who don't want us to get into the arts,
Yep.
Yes.
want us to do something that make money.
Oh, we'll
So
definitely
had
get
to
into
really
that.
fight my way.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Had to really show people that this is just all I wanted to do and all I thought about, and I tried different things. I tried, pleasing the parents and
Yeah.
doing all exploring zoology and exploring chemistry and exploring this. But nothing was setting. And so when I think it was my dad was just like, oh, we just, the standard parent, like we knew all along speech is like, we just wanted to see if you were really serious about this, blah, blah, blah. And then they supported me in wanting to apply for college for film. And how I ended up in Missouri was it had a really good scholarship program. And I think at the time I was freaking out because I was like, why would anyone go to Missouri for film? But jumping forward, so spoiler alert, it was one of my film professors really changed my life during that program. So I guess it was meant to be in going there. So that was, yeah,
Interesting.
that's the story.
It's funny, really
Yes.
quick. Jurassic Park was the first movie I watched in the theaters with my dad. I was
What?
13 years
Awesome.
old. This was like 1993 in the US. And then that evening, Rajeev, I couldn't sleep because I thought
Oh,
the
wow.
dinosaurs were like real. So I went into my parents' room and I slept on the floor next to their bed. I completely remember that night. That's an amazing film. I just
Yeah.
rewatched it like a month
Clearly,
ago.
It
Rajeev
is.
is much more mature than Sameem.
Yes, of course. I think we already know that.
But it's still funny because I still watch that movie and I
Yeah.
still feel like how at least how I remember feeling when I was young, which is crazy.
Yeah, and it
Oh,
holds
it's
up really well.
it's rewatchable.
It's not dated.
100%.
It's
Mhm.
very rewatchable.
Yeah.
It's not dated at all, and it's still pretty scary.
Hmm.
So,
So-
tell me
Yeah.
about Missouri. Like, what was it like being a brown guy going to school there?
So a little tagline of talking in movie terms in this entire conversation. My sister and I went. She went for psychology. I went because again the program had a good scholarship program, and the two of us were featured on the local newspaper.
What?
And the headline was "From Sri Lanka to Springfield." I was like, oh, okay. And for me, I think, I don't know, it might be, I don't know, it might be ignorance, let's just say it that way. But I just thought it was really cool because, like, oh, we're being celebrated for being different. A lot of my friends genuinely would ask what people would think, I guess, are stupid questions. But for me, I was like, oh, they just don't know, Like
Yeah.
one kid, I still think he was lying, but apparently he genuinely thought, like, oh, do you guys also like ride elephants to school?
Oh
And
gosh.
I was like, it could be a joke, but I was like, oh, it doesn't matter because I get to now help you or educate you, I guess. But I don't know. But I just found it really, really, it could, okay, what could have been racism, I found really cool because I was like, oh, I get to tell people
You made
about
it.
my
Yeah.
You made it to
country.
the Midwest of America.
That's funny.
Exactly. So, but I think where I really felt the difference and it kind of put perspective for me was originally I wanted to be an actor and I still do, but it's changed along the way. But I still love acting and I wanted to be an actor. And they were auditioning for the school film for that year, so I auditioned and I got a supporting role. Like I had like 3 lines in 3 different scenes. And when we went to watch the movie, when the movie came out, they had this like school premiere and like parents were invited and like the 50 people in the city or whatever it was. And
Mhm.
as soon as I hit as soon as I hit the screen, I didn't even have a line. They were just establishing me walking in. Everyone started laughing, and I was just like, "Oh, I guess we're always kind of portrayed as the
Yeah.
comedic Indian friend or Sri Lankan
Yeah.
friend or South
Wait
Asian
a
friend or whatever it
second. Who
is."
do I need to
And
fight?
that
Who
kind
do
of
I need to fight?
clicked.
Come on, tell me their names.
All of Springfield Music Hall,
All 50 of them. As you
50
all
attendees.
50 people.
Wow.
You're
That's
But yeah, I think that was the first time I really felt,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
pretty similar to that, I would say. I think we were all born and raised in the United States, in California, and you're
mm,
right on. It was like growing up in the 80s is a mix of racism, but low key, more so ignorance than anything else. You're totally
Yeah.
correct. It wasn't very intentional, I think. I think it's just they don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my parents came to the US in the early 70s, and my mom said she would, like, white people would ask her, like, where are you from? And she would say Pakistan. And they would be like, oh, is that in the South? And she was
Yeah.
like, of the world,
Uh,
of the globe.
yeah,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got
Yeah.
I got that too. A lot of people also just don't know Sri Lanka exists,
Mhm.
and it's also because a lot of world maps don't have us drawn in because I guess we're so tiny or whatever it is. But so everyone just assumed I was Indian, and then when I would say Sri Lanka, they would be like, "What's that?" Or one kid proceeded to be like, "No, you're Indian." I was like, "No, there's another country. It's below. It's completely different. It's called Sri Lanka." He's like, "No, don't, stop lying. You're Indian." So I think even just getting to kind of, hey, there's another country in
Yeah.
South Asia. Yeah, so it's a lot of it was ignorance.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's a great segue into this point of learning more about not only just you, and I mean, I don't want to put this on you, but we're excited to have you as our first Sri Lankan guest, right? And so, even as Pakistanis or Indians that we are, we still don't know much. Now, I do have a Sri Lankan friend that I went to school with, and we still talk to this day. But
Imran has one Sri Lankan friend and one black friend. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
what
the
a
way
sorry.
the way you said it, you were like, "I'm not racist against Sri Lanka."
Oh yeah, by the way, I have
I do have a Sri Lankan friend, just so you know.
Yeah, we all do now. We have
I
Rajeev. He's
can't
all our
believe I
friend.
fell
Yeah.
into that.
Exactly.
I didn't even have to mention that at all, and just
That was quite funny.
All right. Anyways, we're happy to have you here because we all get a little bit of that education as
Thank
well.
you.
And so, one of the things I wanted to start off with was your full name, right? And give us like a little bit of the background and the history behind your name, Rajeev Colton. Now, I'm not going to pronounce. I'm not. I don't want you. I don't want my friends to make fun of me if I got it wrong. So I'll just leave it to you.
So my name is Rajeev Colton Vikramaratne. The reason I go by Rajeev Colton is because, again, it's easy. It's easier
Of
for
course.
people to say. It was funny because I had a really long discussion actually with my parents about it because I think, especially as people who come from countries who want to work in the West and areas where predominantly people don't have names like Smith and
Yeah.
whatever, you're kind of hesitant to say your last name. And it becomes a point of like, oh, like, but then it becomes a process of I have to help you pronounce it and explain, etc., etc. So I think a part of it was, how do I work in an industry where I can just walk into a room and people can just say Rajeev Colton, but also be proud of who I am and proud of the Vikram Ratna part of it as well. And it was funny because my parents gave me such good insight of like, you're always going to be Rajeev Colton Vikram Ratna. No one's going to take that away from you. But in certain settings, just to be able to play the game or be a part of the industry, like it's okay to, so that really helped me feel okay with just going as Rajeev Colton, but I'll always be Rajeev Colton Vikram Ratna. I honestly I don't know like the history behind my name, but we used to have longer names because how Sri Lanka worked was based on like your village or your region, you would get another name as well. And it was called your, okay, this is going to sound really weird on air. So I'm going to translate it. It's your home name. So how home or house in Sri Lanka is Gedara,
Okay.
and shortened it's gay. So like okay, gay koida, but in English, gay is gay. So it's in Sri Lanka, it's your gay name, but that sounds really weird. So we're not gonna say it like that. So you would have like a home name, and that's kind of how they associated where you would come from. And I think my dad's generation, funnily enough, was the last one to kind of have it because it just made your name so much longer.
Oh, okay.
So it would be Rajeev Colton Wannaka Wattu Waduge Vikramratna
Wow.
if I had it.
Okay.
Man.
And I think my uncle has it, and his passport is like two lines because of the name. I think, yeah, I don't know how they dropped it, but basically that generation was the last generation to have that whole situation. But yeah, names are very
Fascinating.
interesting here.
Definitely you feel like it's open doors for you, because I got married a couple of years ago. My husband's white, like he's half white, half Mexican, but he has a German last name. And so I changed my last name. I had this whole conversation with my mom about like, should I do it? And my husband was like, whatever, do it if you want, don't. And my mom was like, no, you should, because you should have the same last name as your kids. But then I started thinking, I was like, I wonder if I could like, if maybe I could get some white privilege with this last name. I was like, I'm gonna use this last name, but see what happens. Maybe I get another job, get paid a little more or something. I don't know.
Well,
That's
have
great.
you? Have you used it?
And if it's a phone job, you just put on like a white voice, and so you have a white voice and a white name.
Yeah, except my first name is like so, South Asian, Turkish,
That's
whatever.
true.
So it's definitely confusing. But yeah, I don't know. I have to get back to you guys on whether that works or not. I need a couple more years of evidence to figure it out.
And so, as of right now, you are in Sri Lanka, right?
Correct. I moved back in February. We finished up with them, and then they just had a bit more to do, but like it was more a visa thing as well. So I just, yeah. And anyways, I was planning on coming back home.
So coming to LA and moving back. So LA, why do you hate it? Why did you have to move back? Why didn't you stay?
Do you hate it?
Because it's really expensive.
Yeah.
That's
No,
right.
I actually really do love it. The first time I ever went to the US, my mom used to be a flight steward, and so I got to go when I was 2 years old. I don't remember it. There are pictures, but I don't remember it. But looking at it now, and like one of the places we got to visit was Disneyland. So now being a movie buff and like it just loving anything in entertainment, I love LA because I think it's like the entertainment capital with like Universal Studios and like all the studios there, etc., etc. So I think for me it was just more like opportunity and jumping a little forward, but just like getting to work on Cap. Our offices were at the Walt Disney Studios, like in the studios. So just getting to be there was slightly mind blowing because I was like, oh, this is what you wanted to do when you were a kid, and now you get to kind of be in this zone. And I think for me, it wasn't LA, it was movies, if that makes sense. Like when I left work, it was LA.
If the industry,
and when I got to work,
the industry was heavy in like wherever, like in Springfield,
right,
you would be in Springfield.
Exactly. Like if the industry was its own country, I would be there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how I treated it. Was like when we were on set, I was not wherever.
Yeah.
When we were in the office. So that, I think that my brain works like I can't compartmentalize. I think I do it just to cope or like for my own safety. But like I just find compartmentalizing so much easier. And I think that's what I did with being in LA. I mean, I also like I think for me, it's like where people are that people I enjoy, I'm okay with. So like if I had a good group of friends, but I think a big thing I miss, and I think a big part of South Asian culture is family. And I think,
Yeah.
family is very important to us. So that was one thing that kind of felt like if I could tear myself into and have the work person be in LA and the family person, friend person be back home, that would be ideal, but that's not how life works.
So you love Dom Toretto from the Fast and the Furious. So I get that because you're all about family. All right, I got that check.
All about family.
But my last question
I
is,
saw me shaking his
no,
head.
they always have disapproval.
I got
of
the joke, and
anything
I was
I
pretty
do.
good actually. It was a good joke. I'm laughing because it was good. But you're right,
Put it in
Rajeev.
my-
I'm also laughing.
He was
at
surprised.
Imran. I also laugh at him. So
I'll
same.
put this in my stand.
Two different things.
My last question around you're starting your own business. So when did you decide that
Mhm.
that moment? Why did you decide it? How is it going? Like, what are the struggles?
Specifically in filmmaking, it's about a what you want to do. So if you just want to be a cinematographer, you're looking to get hired. So if you're just an actor, you're looking to play a certain role. But for me, I want to be an actor, but then through film school and that, like I said, the professor who changed my life, Chapman, there were a few of those as well. I discovered that I actually did want to just produce and write. I want to be a storyteller. And so for me, that was important because that means I'm the one who's creating the opportunity and then bringing the people in, which means I have to create an identity. I have to have a signature. What kind of stories do I want to tell? So up until let's say 2019, so just before the pandemic, I was like, Hollywood, that's it. I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna work, work on all these things, etc., etc. My first year of Chapman was actually all online because it was during the pandemic, and I didn't want to give up that opportunity just because I wasn't there in person. I was just like, this is a huge opportunity. It's a top 4 film school in the US. I'll do it online. It was crazy because of the time zone difference.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, nightmare. But any producers or aspiring producers listening, never produce remotely. It's not fun. But yeah, I think, and then one of my classes, one of my professors, as an extra credit for some weird reasons, it's like, I want you to do South Asian cinema. I want you to do a presentation on cinema in Sri Lanka. And if that's not enough, like if there's not a lot, like just South Asian cinema. And so I got to study or like do like a
Deep dive.
deep
Yeah.
dive. I got to do a deep dive, deep dive research situation on Sri Lankan cinema and South Asian cinema. And I think it was a mixture of ignorance and arrogance that I didn't really take the time to watch my own movie, like the movies of Sri Lanka, and just kind of like enjoy that growing up because it was just all Hollywood. Like that's all you see here, and that's all we got to enjoy. Also, the quality, like the difference in quality of like a Jurassic Park versus a Sri Lankan film as a young kid. I'm like, I'm gonna watch Jurassic Park 15 times over,
Yeah.
But I got to fall freshly in love with movies here and stories here, and that's I think when for me, I think that's when the switch happened to like, I want to tell Sri Lankan stories and I want to, use the education that I have and the quality that I've seen with telling the stories in that same sort of way. So that's kind of where, I mean, always wanted to have my own production company, but that's where the Malla Productions like identity was born was in during the pandemic in that class.
And what's the meaning of Malla?
So Malla means younger brother in Sinhalese. I'm also an older brother, but I'm also a younger brother. But I've always been like the little kid, and like everyone, even if they weren't related to me, called me Malla. So it's kind of like an affirmation identity, like it's a validating and an affirming identity, but also it represents like the underdog or like a coming of age aspect.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of, I know that sounds so like deep and like you, but that's
That's
kind
cool.
of,
Yeah.
Hey, as long as
That's
it
cool.
means something to you.
Yeah,
As long
and
as it means something to you,
exactly.
that's fine.
That's right. And it sounds international, so it works
Yeah.
for our
Yeah.
international friends. But yeah, I think that was kind of where wanting to do that. So my whole slate kind of pivoted from 2020 to just doing, Western and streaming and big platform worthy Sri Lankan films and stories. So, yeah.
Nice.
For some background, my daughter is going to be 16, so she grew up on these Marvel movies. And when we talk about growing up with Jurassic Park or movies from the early 90s, that it
Mhm.
certainly wasn't probably just Jurassic Park for you. You probably had other inspirations as well. she legitimately grew up on Marvel, and I can see her in 20 years being, I used to watch Marvel with my dad, because during COVID, I hadn't watched any of the Marvel movies. So we sat down, we watched all of it during COVID, the first iteration and the second, and now we're going into the fourth timeline.
Space Factor.
So like you must have been quite young when these movies were coming out. I think Iron Man came out in 08. Like, were you aware, like when you were a kid, of these
2008.
movies yet?
Yep.
Like how did Marvel play into your any sort of filmmaking experience or inspiration, if it did at all? I'm making a big assumption.
No, I did, because we grew up on, so like my sisters and I, when we would spend like nights and weekends, or whenever we were like being babysat by my mom's parents, our grandparents, they would put on like the Supermans and the Spider-Mans. You know, that was the only time like TV would be like, oh, like we're gonna go to our grandma's house and watch Superman, Spider-Man. I know Superman's DC, but like Spider-Man, like all of the, like the superhero films. So that was a big part of my upbringing. Comic books a little bit, but not so much. I was more like film, TV,
yeah.
visual versus, you know, like the I enjoyed comic books, but like definitely watch. And then I wasn't allowed to go to the like, you know, conservative little Sri Lankan kid wasn't allowed to go to the cinemas alone until I was like much older. So I would only allowed to go with my older cousin brother because optics. So 2008 came, and you know, Iron Man, and we knew like we had the Spider-Mans before the Sam Raimis, you had like all this other stuff, so we knew Marvel had its own like film stuff. But then this was kind of there, I remember knowing or feeling, okay, there was a shift with these ones. And so when my older cousin and I went to watch Iron Man and the post-credit scene hit, I was like, oh, you know, something's going on. This is, you know, and then that's when everyone started talking about like, yeah, they're trying to do this whole thing with like, you know, the cinematic universe, and they're trying to do it like episodes where it builds up and blah blah. So that from a film side got me really excited. I was like, oh, like you have film, and then you have TV, but now you have film that's kind of like TV.
Yeah.
So it's like episodes, but it's its own, you know.
Yeah.
And I think as the years progressed, and as you saw what Marvel was doing leading up to now, you know, Infinity War, Endgame, it was like, this is amazing, you know. And it really drew me back to like watching those superhero movies as a kid, but also now as a film person or person who loves movies, seeing like what can be done in a very artistic way, and getting, you know, the fans together and creating this whole, now what we know is like the whole MCU, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And MCU came out, and it sort of it raised the tickets, the prices, like in not to use the pun, but Infinity War, the prices got a little bit too exorbitant. But then lately, I've been talking to people, and I don't work in film, but I do have an affinity for it. And in terms of like the film industry, do you think Marvel has had any negative effects on it? And it's not to say, oh, Marvel like ruined anything, but it does seem like Marvel got so popular to a certain extent where it was really hard to get other films in front of the mass audience. And I know you probably worked on both sides of the coin. You were working on the Marvel movie that we just talked about, and you also have other inspirations as well. So that's the kind of sentiment I've heard from some people around here, that Marvel has, quote unquote, you know, set expectations so high in terms of a vast movie experience that people can't really pay attention if it's a normal-ish kind of movie.
I agree. I think the Marvel movies ruin both their fan base as an audience, but also just people who love going to movies, or can get excited about something because they had. Okay, I'm not saying that they don't have a plan. I don't know what that is. I will, like, you know, you would hear things in the office, but like I don't know. But when you watch the 2008 to 2018 10-year run leading from the first one to the end, that, you know, there were payoffs that was set up in Infinity War and Endgame that went all the way back to Iron Man, you know? So like there was like, oh, there's this huge, clear 10-year plan. And I think people, you know, like a lot of characters left that people really enjoyed and were, you know, huge fan favorites. And so like for them after that, they were kind of like done with the whole MCU aspect of it all. But also it just felt like, oh, this is it. This was the end of this whole like really cool thing we're doing with cinema and episodes, and, you know, building up, etc., etc. And so when that hit, and then it kind of went into, you know, the pandemic with the TV show stuff, and then they try to reintroduce new characters and reshape the whole thing. I think it kind of, for the fans,
Mhm.
first of all, I think that's kind of where it kind of went south, because now you have to keep going and keep up, and then to know what's happening in the next movie, you have to watch 6 episodes of another show, and like blah blah blah. Some countries don't have access to Disney Plus, so how do we watch that? And then, so I think, sometimes it's good to quit while you're ahead, even though money is a huge part of the movie making industry. I think, in my personal opinion, I think it would have been smart to kind of end the whole cinematic episodic situation with Endgame, and then kind of go into a more maybe individual or one-offs.
Yeah.
But from a Marvel movie, in terms of what it does and how it looks like in the general audience thing, I do agree. I think a lot of people, you have the fan base audience and you have the general movie audience, but you also have cinema people audience. And I think a lot of them are averse to what's happening with Marvel, because there's no real like, how do I say this without sounding so horrible? The characters don't seem to show as much depth as you would get in like what Hollywood and cinema used to look like, and
Yeah.
what people are trying to do now. And I think, when we were growing up as kids, we didn't have the MCU. We had the Jurassic Parks, and at some point when you were old enough to watch it, you had the Titanics and like the Godfathers and and I think there was an element of it being a blockbuster, but also there was depth to like characters and stories
Yeah.
and worlds that they're living in. And now you see people not being able to kind of like, oh, like the red coat in Schindler's List is symbolism for some, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, why is that kid wearing a red coat in a black and white movie? You don't get a lot of audiences like challenging anything, because the world is just getting so much busier, and like life is getting more hectic with everything going on. So you just want to watch something that you can just not have to
Yeah.
think too much about,
It can be
Yeah.
a blockbuster
And I
movie
think
and be a
that's
little
why.
philosophical.
Exactly. But I think people enjoy the Marvel movies because you just get to go and see a hero win and have a huge action sequence and a major cameo. And like, I don't have to sit. And I think if you look at like, even like, for example, Wicked versus like Gladiator 2 or something, like Wicked is also just a big spectacle.
Yeah.
Like, it's 2 hours and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's a
really?
long
Oh,
time.
But
wow. Yeah.
like it's
Yeah.
but I think that's why you see a lot of these comments of like, why are we doing reboots and why are we doing remakes and why are we doing, it's because larger general audiences don't really want to, I wouldn't say they don't want to think anymore, if that makes sense, but I think they just enjoy,
Yeah.
and like just the entertainment aspect of it, and I think the movies that are really doing something a little bit more deeper and a little bit more, different and artsy are just,
Yeah. It's like,
they just don't have us,
I get that. It's like an escape. And you made some really good points. Like when people are on their phones, it's so busy. We're getting so much information and we're used to just consuming information like right away. So these Marvel
Yeah.
movies come in and they're blockbuster, extravagant action, celebrities, end credits, and then people are talking about the end credits, Harry Styles after the Eternals, things like that, and then he doesn't show up in any movies. So like it's
Yep.
just to like
No, yep.
generate the interest. Does he show up
Yeah,
in
but
movies, by the way? Because that was super strange. Harry Styles was in the end of Eternals. I don't
Oh.
know if you've seen that one. And I thought he was going to be like in other Marvel movies, but I don't think he was.
So his character in the comics is supposed to be Thanos' brother, apparently.
Oh, interesting.
So
We'll see
he's
where that goes.
Eros. Yeah,
Eros,
he's yeah, I don't know.
Shabnam's like,
But
what?
to yeah, no, but well,
She's like,
I
what are
was
you guys
gonna
talking
say
about?
no, I'm about to bring this back to reality TV. Okay,
Okay, let's do
because
it.
what I was gonna say, what I was
Let's
gonna
go.
say was like what you're describing. I think it also goes along with this reality TV era, right? Where people are like,
Mhm.
you invest in these characters and you see them for years and years and years, and you don't have to think about investing in new characters or paying that much attention as much attention as you otherwise would,
Mhm.
because you kind of know who they are, so you can be on your phone for some of the time or you can be distracted. And I think that's the thing. It's kind of exactly what you're talking about in Marvel. I think people want to just invest in characters and not have to make that investment again. of actually paying
They don't want to
attention
make
and getting
brand
to know
new
characters.
characters. Like, here's the
Yeah.
established
Yeah.
comic book character.
Exactly.
You can go read his background. Yeah, we'll do 5 minutes of it in the movie and then move on and let's get to the meat of it. Sometimes
Right.
it's good, but it's, a good movie will have character development like that, right?
Right. And then the few that do get like major attention, so for example, Anora is getting a lot of attention right now. And then, when The Whale came up with Brendan Fraser,
Yeah.
a comeback actor,
Yeah.
etc., etc., and just other smaller movies, it's like Past Lives, it's because you'll have the people who would go and watch it like either on a whim or they're invited by somebody, etc., and then they do feel something, and then that's like, whoa, this is crazy. Have you seen this movie? It made us feel this way. And we were sobbing through the whole thing. And then word of mouth, because like that's the biggest form of marketing is word of
Yeah.
mouth. Like if Shabnam goes watches a movie and she's just like, don't even like all these Lindsay Lohan Christmas movies and the Pentatonics one that just came out. Everyone's like, do not waste 2 hours of your life. And I was just like, no, noted. I'm not going to sit and waste 2 hours of my life. And I think we live in a time now where time is also so important to each of us that if somebody tells us, oh, it was really bad, a lot of people just don't go watch it. And if somebody says like, no, you have to watch this movie,
They will.
like
Yeah.
that's kind of also,
I don't know what world
like,
you're living
it's
in
just word
that
of mouth.
nobody's watching those Lindsay Lohan movies because they're still
Someone's
they
watching.
don't need
Yeah.
our viewer. They definitely don't need our viewership, but they are getting viewerships a year
Yeah, not
after
us.
year.
They are.
That are-
Every movie has an audience. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I tried to watch one of those Lindsay Lohan Christmas movies with my mother-in-law over Thanksgiving. So,
Man.
yeah.
The Pentatonics one is I will say this boldly,
Yes.
even if at some point this might come to bite me later. It was excruciating.
It's that bad?
Excruciating to watch. It's so
I'm-
fascinating.
What about Hot
Oh, wow.
Frosty? Did you guys see Hot Frosty?
Hot Frosty.
Yeah.
What is that? I don't know what that is.
I'm a Schitt's Creek fan, so yeah.
A Hot
Oh,
Frosty is
I-
on Netflix
It's-
too. It's this really cheesy Christmas. I did watch actually half of that one, and it's like this snowman that this lady puts a magical red scarf
It's like
on.
Frosty the Snowman. Do you remember
Well,
Frosty
yeah.
the
Stop
Snowman
it.
as a kid?
Stop
Like, did
it.
y'all watch that?
No.
So it's hot Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah.
It's Ted
Oh.
from Schitt's Creek, shirtless 50% of the film, who was a snowman and came to life. That's literally the plot.
Yeah, and
Okay.
this red
when I
scarf
have
is
some alone
magical.
time, I'll watch it.
Yeah, the red scarf is
Well,
magical.
like Frosty the Snowman, the red scarf, the hat
Yeah.
is in Frosty
So
the
he's
Snowman.
Yeah,
like a
but when
Chippendales
he's-
Kinda like the
dancer.
same.
Yes, but when he's coming to life and he's melting out of the snow and he's naked, then the red scarf is like just perfectly placed, and you could he's
Oh,
like
yeah.
bending over and stuff, but it's just like somehow like glued to him just so that camera doesn't have to blur anything. It's pretty wild.
Here comes the Chai After Dark portion of the show. Shut up.
I'm waiting for someone to talk about Chad Michael Murray's Magic Mike Christmas movies.
Oh, I haven't seen
There-
those.
there
but,
is one?
Yeah. Shabnam, do you need to go?
Hilarious.
It's on Netflix as well.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, what were we talking about? Bad Christmas movies?
No, because
my
we're
favorite-
covering Chippendales. We're covering Chippendales. I was like, maybe we should work the Magic Mike thing into it.
Yeah, Welcome to Chippendales. It's a show on Hulu with Kumail
Oh, there you go.
Nanjiani.
Yes, with
Yeah.
Kumail Nanjiani.
Yeah, so we're covering that right now. So it's a pretty racy show,
Mm.
man. Like I had to watch it in like 10 different my daughter kept walking in. I had to turn it off.
Oh no.
But we're covering
What are
that,
you
so
watching?
it gets a
What are you
little,
watching these
racy.
days in American TV?
I just finished working on like a stage theater
Yeah.
production show, and so haven't really had a lot of time to watch anything, but I just got on The Diplomat and I really am loving it.
That's the FX
And
show.
another show that just for me, it's on Netflix here, but it's with Kerry Russell
Yeah.
and
Oh
it's the
yeah,
whole, like,
yes. Yeah, I've seen
behind
that show.
the scenes
Yeah.
of the American situation. And the writing, like, okay, I'm a sucker for really good writing and something that just like catches me off guard, and I just really am enjoying this show because it just is really treating its audience very intelligently, and it's also like it's fun to see the behind the
Yeah.
scenes of all of that stuff.
That's a great show.
So yeah, The Diplomat's very good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Have you seen Miss Marvel with
Yes,
Yeah,
I have.
I
Iman
remember
Iman
her.
Vellani.
Iman
Iman
Vellani,
Vellani,
No, what?
yes.
Iman Milani.
Yeah.
She's also she's a very nice person as
Yeah,
well.
very cool.
Yeah.
Is
I
this a
don't. I've never met
spoiler
her,
alert?
obviously.
Rajeev?
Wait, what?
No, I'm just saying. No, it's not. It's not.
Miss Marvel, I just want to bring up my favorite scene. It's such a South Asian, like you talked about how you couldn't go to the movies when you were younger without a proper older brother or older cousin. She's hanging out with that guy, the guy that is trying to, like, trick her. And then she's sitting in a coffee shop, and then her brother is sitting in the coffee shop, and he's like, "Who's this?" And she's like, "This is our long lost cousin Kamran." And he's like, "Yeah, aren't you the person that used to go and do bad shit on the internet?" And then he's like, "Yeah, we used to call you haram.comron, right?" And it's like totally made up. He doesn't know
Yeah,
him.
that's right.
So I was
forgot
like,
about
so my daughter always walks up to me and she's like, haram.comron. She says it all the time. I'm like, the personification of Desi culture or South Asian culture in that one little scene. We have to
love
hide
it.
everything.
Yeah.
And I love how we're the only ones who would probably get that, and everyone's just like, "What the heck is haram?" It's
Yeah.
just like, don't worry about it.
Well,
It's not for
that's-
you. The moment Sri Lanka makes it into the MCU, done. Everyone's
Oh,
gonna
that'd be
visit.
amazing.
It's
Yeah.
gonna be overcrowded.
What would that superpower be? The Sri Lankan superhero.
Yeah.
So there is actually a Sri Lankan Marvel character, and he's a villain. A fun shocker.
All
He's
right.
a villain, but he has like whips, and they're like electrical or something. And so, funnily enough, I was talking to one of the producers on set one day, and we were like, "Oh, you should do a Sri Lankan Marvel character movie." And they're like, "Oh, you know about this character?" I was like, "Yeah, I've heard about him, but he's a villain. You should do a superhero one." And the next day, he shows up to set with the action figure. He's just like, "Here you go."
Uh-oh.
But it would be nice to have a hero character be him. And I think our superpower would be, um, I think I would like for it to be talking to animals. I think that would be really cool.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be
'Cause,
cool. Like,
and then get to feature all the diverse wildlife we have
Yeah.
here. That would
Yeah.
be
That would be
fun.
super cool. Yeah. So what did
And
you
then the end be like save the wildlife,
Yeah.
full message, full circle.
What did you think of Miss Marvel? Did you like the portrayal? What were your thoughts?
I enjoyed it. I think for me, I'm not super familiar with um I think a lot of it was also, an immigrant's perspective in the US
Okay.
and like what that's all
Yeah.
like. And because of my brief visits, primarily for school and just like visiting elsewise, I think I didn't really see a lot of it or feel a lot of it just because everyone just was in general super nice and not really that ignorant in that sense. I think that aspect of it, I think, was interesting to me in general. I think whenever I watch anything to do with an immigrant's experience living in the US or anywhere else, because I would say fortunately I've never had anyone kind of treat me that way while I've been there.
Mhm.
And I think maybe it's just my filters have been on and I just don't realize that they are treating me that way. So that was really interesting to me as well, because that was a large part of, I also think, her character and her coming into that power and all of that stuff. So that was really, but I think from the most part, especially the score, like I really love it when they incorporate quote unquote our music or our type of music
Mhm.
into the score as well, because that to me really helps ground people in the world that they're trying to build. I thought they did a good job, but again, I think that was from my limited perspective of all of that.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know what your experiences were watching it, because I think for me, one of the things that annoyed me about watching it was everyone I would watch it with. And again, I was in the US when it came out, but I remember watching it with my US friends, and every time the parents would talk because of our quote unquote our thick accent, they would like giggle a little bit or start laughing. And I think it's because this is something that they're used to seeing. It's like, oh, a heavy South Asian accent is really funny.
Yeah.
And it would really annoy me. But at the same time, I was just like, oh, that's just how we talk, though. Like, what do we, how do we change
Wow.
it? It did it feel like it was edited or featured in a way that was supposed to be comedic, or did y'all feel like it was very authentic to like
I'll say my point of view, because you're really connecting a dot for me from a previous episode of Welcome to Chippendales. We talked about the accent portrayed when Kamal goes to India to talk to his mother. I was like, I was a little off by her accent not being Indian enough. Like as if she was like an American, and then they just built a set here and she had to use her American Hindi, that sort of thing. But it's still better than most.
right?
But during the parents, I was perfectly happy with it. I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
to me in my head. I didn't notice any like, yeah, that's uncle, that's auntie and uncle, and they're their first
Yeah.
generation, so
Right.
their accent to me
Yeah.
was perfectly great. It was fine.
It's a pretty
Yeah, I
accurate
mean,
show. Yeah.
same. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I thought
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's campy, but it's like it's accurate as far as like
Right.
how the parents are with the kids. But obviously, it's it's campy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you know what my huge number one pet peeve problem with Hollywood is, and it's like a segue from what we just spoke about, is accents. Like everyone talks about diversity, and you can show somebody looking different or in a sari or whatever, but then they speak American, you know?
Yeah.
So for example, Luca is supposed to be set in Italy, but it has
Yeah.
American accented kids doing the voicing. Raya and the Last Dragon supposed to be, I think it's Vietnam, but and I think they use a Vietnamese American actress, but her accent's American. So I think everyone's used to watching like Aladdin, like
A white dude.
Raya and the Last Dragon, Luca. Yeah, and like they're brown or they're colored, but their accent is American.
Oh,
so the moment you
you
hear
meant the
a
live
different
action
accent,
Aladdin, not the cartoon version. Okay.
Oh, with the cartoon as
Yeah.
well, though, right? Like the accent is Western, or because they speak in
Yeah.
English first of all.
Yeah.
But I think that trains audiences like, oh, like diversity is just the look.
Yeah.
But if you
that's a great
sound
point.
American,
Yeah.
like that's more palatable, right? Like Hollywood is like, no one's gonna watch this movie if it's a very strong Vietnamese accented
Interesting.
actress playing Raya and the Last Dragon. But but press, the Hollywood Reporter, Vanity Fair, like she's from that descent. But then the moment an accent is heard, it's it's if people
Comedic.
are not used to it,
I'm just thinking
comedic.
Rush
You're
Hour
right.
and Jackie Chan. Like, oh yeah, it's a comedy movie.
Right, and I think
Yeah.
I feel like if you're gonna show like Moana, or Moana's Polynesian, so I guess that kind of falls into that area or that region. But like I remember distinctly noticing it with Luca, with Ryan the Last Dragon, and like all of these things. I was like, oh, they sound American still, though,
Yeah.
That's just
and they're
yeah,
supposed
it's
to
really
not
strange.
be in the
Yeah.
U.S.
Even
That's-
Gladiator
yeah.
2 right now with Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington, he's just talking like
Right.
Denzel Washington. There's no accent.
Exactly.
And this is supposed to be in Spain
And it's
or something, and he's like, "Hey, what's up? I'm
right.
Denzel."
Well,
Like that's how he speaks in Gladiator 2.
and the cadence, the same, and it just throws you off because I'm just like, oh, you're training audiences to have it to, a British accent, an Australian accent, American accent. They're more palatable. But the moment you bring in a South Asian flair to it, or an Asian flair to it, or anywhere else,
Or even
it's
like
just
a
oh, this
Latin,
is,
a Mexican or anything. It's all it's more so comedic,
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But Kumail Nanjiani, he's been in many things now in the U.S. with his
Right.
accent's quite significant.
Which is super awesome because he was a predominantly
Yeah,
a
he was
comedic actor.
yeah.
I remember he showed up in the indie film where the boys go off to the jungle because like we're gonna be on our own, and
No,
We the Kings, I think, or like Kings of Summer. Sorry,
Kings of Summer. Okay.
Summer. Nick Offerman, and he shows up as the Indian delivery guy, and they have the argument about the wontons being super huge. And he's just like, and Nick Offerman's like, you eat it. And Kumail is like, oh, do you want me to unhinge my jaw like an anaconda and eat these wontons? But he's speaking in his heavy, thick Indian accent. And it's this really funny scene of like this back and forth with this delivery guy. So it was really nice, especially I think in Eternals, to kind of also just see him transition from just being a comedic actor into like, a little bit more serious too. And I think that's kind of where that switch happened as well.
Shabnam, I don't think you've seen the Eternals, but Kumail, he's like the main character in that movie, in a Marvel movie. And then there's like this 20-minute number of him doing a dance with all these background dancers. And for a certain 20 minutes of this movie, that movie's way too long, by the way. It's like 3 hours long or something. There's like a 20-minute Bollywood dance number with Kumail's character and everyone behind him, because he's supposed to be like, he's literally a rich and famous actor. That's what he's playing in the movie.
By the way, I don't approve of that dance. Like
really?
The song and dance was not well choreographed or dance. It just wasn't. I was like, what is this?
Are you being serious?
You could have easily gotten Preetham. You could have went and gotten Preetham to score this dance song. It would have been a hit. You would have sold records.
Imran is our resident dancer / choreographer. That's why he's kind of upset right now.
doesn't feel that this number had enough hip thrusts in it for him.
Public thrust.
Yeah.
You gotta.
Do you want to know a fun fact?
Yes, please.
The choreographer of that number was Sri Lankan born, but then she
No!
moved to
Imran, how
India.
dare you?
She was
How dare you?
Well,
Imran?
I wasn't making
This
fun of a
is-
specific, nation, man, countryman. I
Yeah,
was just saying in
yeah.
Oh
general.
no, I know. It's funny. It's funny that you probably don't notice the authenticity. Maybe it was she was Sri Lankan born. So maybe they should have got a Bollywood or Indian choreographer to do it.
Imran, maybe you're just too, desi pop. You need to get into the desi indie, actually authentic stuff. Okay.
Excuse me. My South Indian Punjabiness does not need that. I already got it in my bones. All right.
Oh my
It's
God, bro.
natural. Whatever.
Whatever.
No, but Rajeev, Shabnam has a little game for you after this.
Yeah.
But we just wanted you maybe talk about the production that you finished that you had referred to, and then
Mhm.
what's next for you.
Oh,
Yeah.
so thank you. I launched Malla Productions. So I want to do theater as well, but theater is,
Mhm.
obviously a little tougher to take international because of all that goes into it. So theater, being a big part of me growing up, etc., I want to do those here as well, on and off. So I started, since it was much easier to start off with theater, I launched Malla Productions with a show, and it was Alan Ayckbourn's Abs and Friends, and it was nice because I think getting to have a live audience and get to talk to them about what the production company, the history of it, where I wanted to go, that was really, really nice and interesting as well. And then getting to work with all these actors and local talent. And the big reason for it is also to network. I met a lot of people that I don't want to work with, and that's fine, that's normal. And I met a lot of people I really am excited to work with in the future. So that's been a really good experience, and that just concluded as well. And then in February, when Captain America comes out, I'm doing my own personal screening and inviting obviously friends and family who've been there from the beginning and seen the Rajeev shooting silly little short films on whatever device he could find, etc., the foundation, to also inviting local directors and producers and investors, key being investors, because at the end of the film, I'm going to do a little Q&A, show some behind the scenes, getting to cook dinner for Harrison Ford,
Nice.
all that fun stuff.
Wow.
And then I'm going to launch my slate for the next 5 years.
Very
So
cool.
That's
Awesome.
really
Yeah.
cool.
I'm excited.
The moment you mention Harrison Ford, I saw it just now, the cheek, just like a genuine like happiness to Harrison Ford. Like as soon as you say Harrison Ford, and I noticed it, and then right here
Big
you
fan.
just did it again. Like, what was it about Harrison Ford that just makes you gleam eye to eye, ear to ear? I think that's ear to ear, eye to eye. Yeah. Okay, you get it.
Yeah. There are multiple levels to it's Harrison Ford. And in a young, well, like especially like millennials, let's say millennials, growing up with Indiana Jones and growing up with Han Solo and all of that, like and everything else he's done. When you want to work in film and if somebody comes up to you and says hypothetically, in 3 years you're gonna get to work with Harrison Ford, you're like, this person is high, they're crazy, they're lying to you, it's a scam, run away, And so I think the moment I found out was, and it's obviously now all over the trailers, I can talk about it, but like we were in the office, and one of the things I had to do for my boss, the director, Julius Anna, was I was doing his calendar, and he's like, I want people's birthdays on there so that I can wish them happy birthday. We can do that. And so I got a crew list and a cast list, and at this time it hadn't been announced yet. And I got the cast list and I saw his name and I was just like, no, it can't be. Like what? So I went up to my really good friend Danny Bonda, who is the executive producer's assistant, and I was just like, "Can you just verify this for me? Is this the cast list for this film?" And she's like, "Yeah, that looks good." And I was like,
Wow.
"Is this like Indiana Jones, Han Solo, Harrison Ford?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "What do you mean, yeah? Like, yeah?" And she's like, "Yeah, you didn't know?" And I was like, "Are you crazy?" And so, long story short, we had him for a couple of weeks in filming, and during the table read, and this story is in the interview you talked about. But yeah, during the table read, it's a small group of people because only certain people are privy to the script. So because I had to work script stuff with my director, I got access to that as well, which is its own NDA, all that fun stuff. And so at the end, we're all like mingling and talking, and he kind of naturally walks up, and he's just like, hey. And like, this was one of the moments where I think, again, that accent conversation really resonated with me, because he goes, oh, your accent's not Indian. And I was like, oh, okay,
Hey.
that's a real thing then, you
Mhm.
know. And I was like, oh, that probably makes, you probably clocked that because you worked in Sri Lanka. Like he did, you know, Temple of Doom was shot in Sri Lanka for the most part. And, you know, they used Sinhalese in the film and called it Hindi,
Yeah.
which I thought was crazy,
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
ridiculous. Anyways,
Yeah.
that's another story. And so I was like, oh, what was your favorite part of the, you know, being in Sri Lanka, trying to hopefully see if he'll visit at some point. And he was like, oh, hands down, the food.
Oh, wow.
And then we were talking, blah, blah. At the end of the conversation, goes, oh, do you cook? And I was like, I do, but not on that level. But I must say yes, because
Yeah.
this sounds like an opportunity.
Yeah. Wow.
So I said yes. He's just like, okay, at the end of the shoot, I want you to cook Sri Lankan food for me. And obviously, I mean, let's see if I can show it to
That's
you since
crazy.
you're on
This is awesome. Yeah.
webcam. But
I mean, whatever. I'm excited to see what
uh,
you want to see, but you have to tell us what you cooked for him.
this is
Oh,
No way.
wow.
So you're gonna have to
That's
send
so
us.
my
cool.
You're gonna
food.
have to send us this picture.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so that's my boss, the director.
Yeah.
That's the food I made. And then, ooh, let's see. So this is
Oh,
Oh
that's
my
so
God.
cool.
That's awesome.
but obviously getting to work with him again, like I said, on a film perspective. But for me, what was really, really special is he's my dad's favorite actor.
Oh, that's cool.
And this is now clocking back to the dad who was just like, da 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 film, and you want to get into
Full
sex,
circle.
drugs, and alcohol, and like you wanna. And so, full. One of the things, because like everyone's like at the end of the day, he was super cool about it too. Like people asking him for stuff, and he signs stuff, and he takes pictures, and he was like, we were talking. I said, can you get on a video call with me and talk to my dad as
Oh
a
my goodness.
surprise? And so I screen recorded. You can't really hear it, and my dad has a funny name on my phone, but he said, "Okay, I'll hide behind the camera. You get your dad on." I said, "Yeah,
Oh.
Dad, wear a shirt."
Wear a
And
shirt.
like he's like, "What's going on?"
Wear
I
a
said, "Just
shirt.
wear a shirt."
So uncle,
And
so
then,
uncle to be shirtless.
Harrison Ford.
Oh my gosh.
and so getting to say, look at what all of that
Wow.
had led up to was such a divine moment for me. Just getting to be like, here's why.
This is why I
Here's
did
why it
this.
all paid off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing.
That's a tearjerker,
That
man.
was
so cool.
why-
That is a tearjerker.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is
That's why
so
that's really
beautiful.
special. So
Okay, so you have to tell a little bit about the things you cooked for him.
okay, so my favorite meal is what I cook for him, because if I like it, I mean, like, and again, like I could make anything. He's like, oh, it's Sri Lankan, you know.
Yeah.
So yellow rice or turmeric rice
Uh-huh.
is a must. Chicken curry in general, and he's like, make it
Spicy.
effing spicy.
Yeah.
Like he's like, make it super spicy.
Nice.
And I was just like, so just a note to all the fans, Harrison Ford likes spicy food. So chicken curry, I made a different one for my boss because like I don't need the spice. It's called, in directly translated, it's called potato, like fried potato, I guess.
Mhm.
Like, so it's like potato that's boiled, but then you like toss it in, like stir fry it a little bit, you know what I mean, with
Mhm,
onion and chili. That's one. In the US or like in the West, they call it lentil,
Yeah.
but dal
Yeah.
or paripu. Yeah. So that was that. And then papadum, of course.
Nice.
Yeah, I think
Lentil
that
chips,
was
yeah.
the
So
meal.
I heard
Yeah.
this about Harrison Ford. He loved all sorts of international cuisine. Like, wow, this if Harrison
Yeah.
Ford couldn't be any better.
Because what happened when he came to film, right, was he was presented with all this Western food, because like the production manager was like, oh, he's from America, let's have American food. And he was walking around the hotel and he saw the hotel staff eating, you know, the rice packet, the bhat packet, as they would say. And he's like, oh, I want to try that. So like he genuinely is very adventurous and very much wanting to like,
Yeah.
you know, broaden his palate,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
That's really cool. You know, I feel like now we got to end on that note. We can't do the game. Like the game is just going to suck after this Harrison Ford story.
Yeah, we could probably skip the game. I'm okay with
Well,
that.
okay,
Yeah.
the question
Yeah,
is,
let's
did
just-
Harrison Ford have chai?
No, he did not. I don't.
Rajeev was
On
like, "Oh my
set?
God, I
On
forgot."
set, he probably did.
Yeah,
I was
Raj.
like, oh my gosh, no.
He's like, "I didn't offer him
We
chai."
did on set though, on the colder days.
You
Good,
forgot
yeah.
the chai after the meal? No, just kidding.
What kind of chai do you like?
So it's called kirite here, which is just standard, like, because we're like the biggest tea exporter in the
Ceylon
world.
tea.
So we like
Yeah.
Ceylon tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just your standard black tea with a little bit of milk and sugar, and that's
That's all you need.
4 o'clock in the afternoon
Yeah.
without a minute more, minute less every single day.
Yeah.
Siesta time,
cool.
4
That's what you
o'clock,
get.
3, 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Siesta.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's consistent, right, across all of South Asian culture and England. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
thank you, England.
Yeah.
But I do love a good masala chai, though.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well,
Great.
okay. In LA, did you have a spot to go to? You want to give a shout out to?
In Orange County, I think it was called the Spice Bowl, which was a Sri Lankan restaurant by Sri Lankan people, and I think it was called Spice Bowl.
Shabnam,
So yeah,
we should
in
go
Orange
there.
County.
We
Well,
should
well,
totally
let's-
go there. Yeah,
let's
we're
double check
gonna.
in. Yeah.
We're gonna spend.
Yeah.
We're gonna be in Orange
Year's.
County
Team outing.
over
Yeah.
New Year's. Yeah,
Yeah.
so maybe we'll try that. Yeah.
Spice Bowl, right?
Thank you for joining us, Rajeev. We really appreciate it. Tell us when Captain America: Brave New World comes out and where to follow you.
So you can follow me on. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You can follow me on social media, Instagram. You can, if you type in Malla Productions, Malla Productions as one word. You can stay tuned to all the fun Sri Lankan, global quality level stuff that's about to come out in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
And then Captain America: Brave New World hits theaters worldwide on the 14th of February, 2025.
Valentine's Day
Great.
in the U.S.
Awesome.
How romantic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna
Rajeev.
jingle out of here. We appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Very nice conversation.
After dark.
Yeah.
I take
Yeah.
my leave,
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Peace
thank you.
out.
Thank you so much.
and we'll be in
All right.
touch.
Really appreciate
you
it.
so much.
Yeah.
Have a great
Absolutely.
day.
Thank you
Rajeev.
again for
Thank
having
you.
me. This is special.
Of course.
Thank you. You too.
For Chai After Dark, please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Blue Sky. Please send us an email, chaiafterdark@chaiafterdark.com. And if you really like this episode and you want to support Shabnam and I and what we do, please follow us on Patreon, Chai After Dark. Find us on Substack as well, chaiafterdark.com.